Hello, my name is Eric Kinsey. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, and you are listening to Rulers and Riders, the podcast where we talk to creative people about what they do and what they ride. Anyone who has even the most cursory interest in choppers knows the name Lowbrow Customs. Tyler Malinky started out working for himself at age 19 as a sign maker. For 10 years, he developed his skills in graphic design, leading to the creation of his first website to sell his own line of chopper t-shirts in the early 2000s. At the time, finding information on products related to garage-built choppers was nearly impossible, and Lowbrow was a visionary in the hobby. Tyler used his entrepreneurial spirit to identify a market and ran with the opportunity, building his small business into an empire, a true American success story. I'd like to thank Mikey Revolt Arnold, for helping me set up this talk. It was a real pleasure speaking with Tyler. His sincerity and enthusiasm showed through in our conversation, and that carries through to Lowbrow as a company, still going strong after 15 years. Let's talk to Tyler.
Podcast. Mikey had told me about it, and I'd heard when he was on, and I listened to a couple other ones since I've been emailing with you as well. And it's cool. I think it's really neat to try and, be part of anything motorcycle related. I'm into it, and maybe we'll reach some other people who might find it interesting as well.
Yeah. It's kind of a funny thing. When I started doing it, it was a sort of idea that I would replace the work I used to do with magazines. So I had stuff on Greasy Culture and Dice and The Horse and Show Class and all the major newsstand titles. And and I really at first I was like, I'm gonna do it every week, and I'm gonna go after all these interviews and work really hard to replace the magazine work with the podcast. And then just as soon as I had a van and I sold it and bought a new computer and recording equipment and everything, and just as soon as I got my podcast going, 3 other people within a week decided they would do motorcycle related podcasts at the same time.
Yeah, that, I would almost say that doesn't matter, because if anything else, maybe it'll help. If people are realizing there's a motorcycle-related podcast that kind of has something to do with the kind of bikes they like or the culture they like, then get them looking for other ones, so maybe it could even help, I don't know.
Yeah.
I look at it that way. It's kind of nice, if you're the only motorcycle-related podcast, it probably wouldn't be that good. It's nice to have, I don't know, I think of it that way with motorcycle parts, what I do for a living. It's if there's no other motorcycle parts company, it would be kind of boring, you know what I mean? People would only have one choice, and it wouldn't be that fun. So I think it's good to have different points of view and different styles and all that stuff,
Yeah.
So I think, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But anyway, it's probably better than magazines, because they're all going out of business anyway. I'm sorry for them. But, it's got to be a tough racket.
And that's kind of the thing is I took a break from the podcast for a while. I met my girlfriend. She lives in Texas, so we do the long distance thing, and that was the big reason. But I was a little frustrated because every time I would go to interview someone, they would get they would end up on a different podcast, and it was just a little frustrating.
Right.
And so I took the break, and I a lot of people asked me, they're when are you going to do the podcast again and all that, and I kind of hemmed and hawed. And really, for me, it's the best part of it is it's kind of almost more of a self-promotion thing, where it's kind of getting my name out there more, and kind of being someone in the motorcycle scene who's also a creative person, and just to kind of like talk to people like entrepreneurs, musicians, photographers, writers, actors, you know, filmmakers, everything. And dude, I've met some of the coolest people just from doing the podcast.
Yeah, I'm sure. Where are you based out of? Where do you actually live?
Indianapolis.
Okay, cool. Just thinking out loud, but we have Mikey and I and our friend Jesse the Fuel Cleveland show. It's end of July, which is like jam-packed with really good, you know, builders, interesting old guys, photographers, all that stuff. Could be, and basically Mikey especially knows every frickin' person. I'm really bad with names and stuff, but I try. But Mikey's like, I don't know, he's great with that. But anyway, just throwing down an idea, because that might be something like, if you wanted to, you could probably like set up things with people ahead of time or even on the fly and like bang out, you know, 10 episodes in 2 days just from people being in town, you know, or people from further away, this or that. Anyway, just a random thought. But I hear you, man, from being in the industry, like getting to go to all these events for years and years and ride motorcycles and race and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you never know who you're going to meet and where that leads, because most of my best friends, almost, except for my high school friends, like all my best friends I've made as an adult are people I met through motorcycling, and most of them live like, I like all over the country or even out of the country, and I only see them sometimes every few years, but they're the kind of people, like, that doesn't matter. When you meet them, your friendship is the exact same. And so, like, I don't know. You know, it's awesome. It's great meeting a bunch of people, you know. There's always some dickheads in the mix, but all in all, you know meet, like, some pretty amazing people through motorcycling and through just, you know, sitting down and bullshitting with people. So, I think it's cool.
I like to say it's, like, it's the most giving hobby I've ever had, because it's like it really is just like more than Harley's old thing. It's more than a machine, but I mean it's really even just like more than a hobby or a lifestyle. It's like you just meet all these like awesome people, and they're real cool and giving, and you just have like these funny random conversations, and like these like bike events I've gone to where I end up meeting people that are just like amazing that I never would have crossed paths with before.
Yeah, totally.
So, I was, reading over some of the info you sent me, and like back through the blog, and kind of, doing a little internet sleuthing on you. So you started out as a sign maker?
Yeah, that's what I did. So I was, as a teenager. Well, as like a kid, I got into graphic design. Like I'm talking, like I'm 38. I was born in 1980, so I'm talking like in 93 or 94. I was like working in Corel Draw, and I was just into programming. I still am pretty tech savvy. I like computers, but anyway, so I was like into graphic design and photography as a hobby, and I ended up getting a job when I was like 17 at a sign company. And while I learned many things there, the owner was drunk. And alcoholic, so everything didn't work out. So I ended up, actually I got fired for taking a day off that I requested, but in any case, he didn't remember it anyway. Fired me, and that was fine, because I then was like, well, I was already running everything at this small sign shop, so I just started. I was 19 at the time. I started a sign company, which was really just me being self-employed. I did it out of my home. But I did that for 10 years, and it was great, because I basically, was able to like have my own schedule. And at the time when I started coming out, like I was already I've been getting tattooed since I was 16, and so I already had a bunch of tattoos that were visible, and I had blue hair, and it was kind of unemployable for most good jobs. And it was like by choice as well, because that's not a bad attitude. So anyway, I was a sign maker, but what's cool about all my skill sets really worked out for lowbrow, to create lowbrow, because I did HTML programming like for fun. So in the early 2000s, when I kind of started having this idea, and I did graphic design and all this other stuff, so as well as printing and lettering. So I like drew the logo for lowbrow and bought the domain name and didn't do anything with it for a year, and then thought, man, I should do something with this. So I started, made like the first iteration of the website, and it was like selling T-shirts, like chopper T-shirts that I would do the art for and print. and some stickers, all like black and white, super simple stuff. And I started carrying Dice magazine, new Matt and Dean. Like, it was when they were still living in London.
Right.
Like maybe issues like 3 and 4 is when I started like getting in touch with them, carrying the magazine, started advertising in Dice like 4 or something, and kind of carrying like subculture, like proper subculture magazines, DVDs, whatever I could find, and slowly branched off into parts. But I was still a sign maker full time for the first 5 years of Lowbrow, and so this year will be 15 years for us. So
wow,
I started in 04. From 04 to 09, I was still a sign maker, and then working. Doing like filling lowbrow orders, like whatever, everything to do. I mean, I was the only employee, so like, I did everything. You know, answering emails, you know, talking to people on the phone, shipping orders, driving to the post office, whatever. And at some point, I was like, man, I'm having way more fun doing motorcycle parts and such, and like I just decided to shut down the sign company, which is pretty easy. I essentially just stopped doing sign work and focus all my time every day, which felt crazy but also liberating on motorcycles, you know. So that was a decade ago. It seems like forever ago.
You know, man, it's weird how like you tell me the story about like you know, like Matt and Dean like picking up Dice, and literally I remember. I think it must have been like one of Dice's first websites, but it was just like a homepage, and it had like, I think it had a picture of like the latest magazine, so it would have been like real early, like, you know, first 5 for sure. But it was like just a picture of that, and it said like, you know, order here. I don't even think you could do PayPal. I think this is before PayPal existed. But I remember they had this like video that they'd put on the website. And do you remember when they bought that, like, it was like a 55 Chevy Gasser? They'd like flew to California and they'd like...
Yeah, I think that was Matt's car. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
And they just bought this like crazy ass old race car and they were like driving it around.
I do remember that. I think it had a metal like roof on it, if I'm thinking of the same one.
Yeah.
But,
and I just remember being struck by like, man, this is just so cool. And it's funny how like that time there just really wasn't anything. I mean, there's
nothing at all.
There was like the Jesse James stuff, and there was like Chopper Dave, you know, had a little bit of stuff, but it was like Greasy Culture and Dice were like the two, you know, first things, and like the Choppers and Punk Rock discussion thing. And then I can't remember, and it must have been right around then when I saw, like, I think it was one of the early like lowbrow print catalogs.
Yeah, we used to do. Actually, we have Todd here at Lowbrow's got one in his toolbox. So they're like, I used to do posters, like 11-inch by 17-inch posters of just cool shit, and then I would fold them in half and put them in orders. But like my first catalogs were like the backside of that poster, so it was like a 1-sheet thing, and then maybe it turned into like 2 sheets of paper, you know. And it was like literally like poster on one side and like some T-shirts and other stuff on the backside. And just because it was like cheap and it was an easy way to like, you know, spread the word. But yeah, that's probably accurate. This is probably the right time frame and all that.
And now, did you do like? Weren't a lot of those early like even the website and the print stuff? Wasn't that like had a lot of like original illustrations and drawings in it, right?
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, like pretty much everything. And it was it was always like it was actually fun because you can use like I don't know what it is, like Internet Time Machine or the Wayback Machine. You like look at old like versions of websites, and I did that on Lowbrow somewhat recently, and it's fun to see it because I remember it, but then I also like kind of forget. As soon as I see it, I remember. But yeah, it was weird illustration. It was just doing whatever the hell I wanted, you know what I mean? Which is what I've always liked to do, just because I feel like not everyone has to like it. You know what you do. It's like if enough people like it, though, you can make a living from it, and that was my goal. My goal wasn't to like make something that everyone's gonna like or think is cool. I don't think everything's cool. You know what I mean? There's lots of stuff I think is super lame, and it goes both ways. So like, but if you're into it, you're into it. So anyway, a lot of like kind of I still do some stuff like illustrations for stuff we do, but I work with so many different way more talented illustrators now that I don't typically do it myself, though I do like art and drawing, and I always have. But early on, yeah, I did a lot of the, at least some of the T-shirt designs and like just this and that, like literally like sitting down with like pencils and Sharpies and drawing it out.
Yeah, and it always had like just a really just like a very distinctive look to it that I always really enjoyed.
Cool. Yeah, it's funny. Like you, the one thing you mentioned, like it's like there's been like every 3 years there's like a new generation of chopper people. Like, yeah. people always get into it, but it's so crazy because in like 04, I mean even like 07, 08, there was, I mean that was like a million years ago in the new chopper scene. You know, like there was nothing. There was like Dice magazine was totally kind of like the epicenter as far as print goes for that, and then like the PC culture. But it's just like there wasn't a bunch of websites, there wasn't a bunch of forums. There, you know, there was like I was on the Triumph Choppers Yahoo group, and it's funny because someone I met on that. This is in like 01. Is Big Truth from Chop Ahead in Boston, and we're still friends, and we do. Like, I carry his part. We do business back and forth. We support each other's events. You know, I always enjoy seeing him. And it's so funny to be like, oh, you were, you know, I learned a lot from him when I was chopping my first Triumph when I was 21, and it was on the Yahoo message group. And it's cool to see there's still, you know, there's a core of people that over the years that I still know. And actually, speaking of, like, the Dice guys, I went in, like, 07 or something, maybe 08. I was like, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to fly out there, and I'm going to go meet some of these people I've emailed with.
Right.
And it's funny because that trip I actually flew to Phoenix, went around, met some people in Phoenix, drove to Vegas, to LA, and then back to Phoenix. In that trip, over like a few days, I met like so many people who are still good friends to this day. Like, well, you know, the late, you know, Matt and Dean, but as well as the guys from Biltwell, like Bill and Magoo, I met, and that was when Bill was like first in business, maybe a year or something, or two at most. Wes White from 4 Aces Cycle, just a bunch of people who are still in the motorcycle industry, or is just still totally nuts about motorcycles if it's not what they do for a living. And it's cool to see that carry through the years, even though like it seems to me like the kind of the scene has exploded for vintage style choppers over the years, you know, since then.
It's like the weirdest thing how because like I'm 49 and like so I was born 1970, and I'm like I feel like I'm like a grandpa now when I go to some of these events. I
hear you, man. I feel the same, and I'm 10 years younger than you, I guess, but I'm the same way. I feel like, fuck, you know. Yeah. I've been doing this 15 years? That's crazy. You know, it seems bananas. Yeah. But it also gives me the feeling like when, like, I don't even know what it feels like to be doing something for like this for like 50 years, you know? Like some of these guys, like some of my friends and some of these people I do business with are just like old biker guys that are like, you know, super good friends. They must feel really justified to tell people to shut up or like, like it's all been done before, motherfucker. You know, you're not that fucking cool. You know, they must feel really justified after they've seen this stuff come in cycles over and over. But even being in it for 15 years, it's interesting to see stuff. Like I said, there's almost like a new generation every few years, because it's funny because it's like, you know, I don't know. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone gets into something whenever they get into it, or at whatever age. But it's interesting to just kind of see what like people aren't aware of sometimes, like the lineage almost of things, you know. But anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because I see I've seen like younger dudes like come in and they're like, dude, I'm gonna get a panhead. And I'm going to, like, rake it, like, 40 degrees, and I'm going to put, like, a 30 over Springer on it. And, like, they do all this, like, wild stuff. And I was like, well, I'll tell you one time. I'm not going to tell you again. It looks super cool, but if you want to put on miles, or if you want to, like, you know, actually ride it, just keep it as close to stock as you can. Put, you know, like a Super E carb or something on it, and just make it like a, you know, a dependable bike, like a cool looking dependable.
Or have two bikes and make one of them a wild chopper, and you know, the other one like make it a soft tail or like something cheap and easy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because there's nothing wrong with that either. You know, it's a good reason to have a variety of bikes. You can have something that you ride in attack mode. You can have something that's a frickin' still cruiser. and then you can have like the shop truck bike, the whatever, but that you can ride cross country comfortably, and whatever. Blast the radio.
It's funny because like I've seen enough guys come in where they're like getting to that iteration where they're like, yeah, I just like a nice dependable bike, and like they're selling their like crazy long springers and super tall sissy bars and stuff, and but then then there's new dudes that are doing buying up all that stuff and like doing it again.
Yeah, it's all a cycle. I've got a basically bone stock 69 FLH that I love. It's a killer bike, and my brother and they all made fun of me, like, oh, you got a bagger, and like, I don't have a problem with baggers anyway, whatever, but it was funny, they busted my balls relentlessly when I first got it, because every other bike I have is a chopper, and but man, I love them all. And one thing is, choppers got me into stock bikes and into racing, and I appreciate all bikes. I mean, I like custom bikes, I like choppers and stuff, but man, I like stock bikes too, and I like race bikes, and I like whatever. I like having fun on two wheels. I really don't give a crap what it is. I don't care if it's a Harley Davidson or honestly anything anyway. But yeah, it's part of that, like that cycle. I've for years I've had this idea and I haven't done it yet. It was just to do like an evolution of man kind of thing, But it's like a kid on a BMX bike, then he's on an XS 650, then he's on a Triumph, then he's on a Sportster, then he's on a Dyna, then he's on a touring bike. You can just do like, and then he's in a wheelchair, and then he's dead or something. You can just do like the whole. It's like it makes sense too. It's kind of, I don't know, it's reality, which is just funny. I don't know. I should probably do that, because now that I said that, someone else is going to do it.
Yeah, somebody's going to copy it.
I always thought it would be funny. I've been talking about that for like frickin' 5 years at least.
Yeah. One thing that's always struck me too about Lowbrow is like, you guys are not snobby about like, too cool chopper parts or anything like that. Like, you really do offer something for like, Honda people, XS 650 people, Sportster people, Triumph BSA people, full size Harley people, whatever. And that's kind of seems like that's like the genius of your brand, is you allow people this sort of like entry point into a really cool hobby.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not a pretentious guy, and I'm way more likely to totally attack something like that than to be part of it. Meaning, like, I'm not elitist. I don't care what someone rides. I don't care if they're riding a scooter. If they're having fun on it, that's awesome. And when I ride a motorcycle, I'm having a good time. I smile. I'm not being there's too much in the motorcycle industry historically. There's too much tough guy posing bullshit, and like, give me a break, man. Anyone can ride a motorcycle. You know what I mean? It's not that difficult. But no, we cater to everyone, man. Because as far as everyone, meaning, like, we sell parts to plenty of people, chopping up. Literally, you name it. I'm actually surprised still regularly on all the different bikes people customize. In part, it's because it's like, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. It's like, if it's what you have, go for it, man. There's a lot of people who, maybe they really like their Honda Rebel or whatever, and they want to customize it. Well, cool. There's nothing wrong with that. Why sell it and try and get some other bike or something more expensive or something some other group deems cool? It just doesn't matter, So I don't know. We're in business. Just for a living, I really enjoy what I do, and I know everyone here at Lowbrow really enjoys what they do and cares about what they do. But we also do this to have fun. It's like no one would give me the job I want in life. It didn't exist, so I had to build the company to kind of do what I wanted, and also to like run a company how I thought it should be run, because it's not standard. But it works, because in the same way that we are like open with our customers and supportive of our customers, it's the same thing with anyone we do business with, vendors and suppliers and stuff, as well as our employees. I don't know, the gist of it is win-win, right? So, like, I don't lie, I don't screw people over. When you look out for other people's interests as well as your own, and you're honest about things, it makes life so freaking easy, because I never have to worry about, I don't even bother trying to, like, I don't even know. But, like, if someone talks shit about my company or something, I wouldn't even care because it's not true, so who cares, right? And B, because, like, I know we have enough people that we've stoked out and helped out over the years that they're looking out for us, you know, meaning someone else is going to speak up. I just don't have to worry about things. So with that attitude, it makes things just go a lot easier. And again, it's like we're not trying to, like, I'm trying to give cool quality parts for people that, like, fit properly and are well made and actually thoughtful and engineered and unique for a fair price.
Right. And
I think that's, like, a perfect trade-off, right? So it's like people work hard for their money. You know, I want to make it like, hey, I want to be a smart manufacturer so we can make and a designer and work with others who do the same so we can, like, say, hey, these are some really cool parts. And, you know, it's not a $2,000 pair of floorboards. You know, it's a $300 freaking hardtail frame or something, you know,
right.
That's made in Cleveland, Ohio. Whatever, the point being, you know, we just try and, like, do good business and be good people. And that makes it really easy, in my opinion. You know.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I was raised in a family business, so my sisters and I are the third generation in our family business.
Cool.
And it's exactly like you said. It's you know, my grandparents and my parents, like, gave people, like, a good product for an affordable price. They were honest with people. They were part of the community. They offered people an opportunity to work for a good wage and have, like, a stable, dependable job for their family. I mean, we're on, like, you know, generationally, like, repeat customers.
That's awesome.
And that just comes from, like, being, like, good business people, but, like, honest business people. And I'll tell you one thing, you know, being from, like, an entrepreneurial family, that really took me, like, you know, experience in the like the corporate world and just, like, the, you know, creative world and the world in general, is most people unfortunately they don't have that mindset. They don't have that they don't have that integrity, and they don't have that idea of, like, delivering value to their customers. And
so, in my opinion, it's like the difference. At least one difference there that could drive people differently is like the length of time. Like, I'm not focused on trying to make a bunch of money this week. You know what I mean? Like, I want to have a healthy company for my entire life. And equally as important, or more important to me, is that when I die, hopefully an old man, I'm going to be super proud of what I built. And my kids are going to be proud of what I did, and I stood by my beliefs, and I never compromised. And so, like, just doing it's just doing the right freaking thing, and also, like, saying, like, man, people are too entitled, you know, like, you know, they're trying to, like, in many cases, maybe trying to, like, make bank at the expense of others for, like, a short-term gain, and I think that's silly, you know, like, yeah. I think just focusing, or if you focus on, like, that long-term, I mean, talking about generational customers in your family business, that's so fucking cool. I think that's awesome and something you should be proud of, because you can think of your relatives who help make that happen. It's like, man, that must make you feel great. That's the kind of stuff, like, that to me is worth way more than some extra money in the bank because you sold some crap, some poor quality crap to some suckers. You know what I'm saying? So that's like, and there's plenty of that in the motorcycle industry, you know? So, our thing has always been, like, if it's not, it doesn't have to necessarily be like my personal style, right? Like, but if it's a cool part, if it's a quality part, then we'll sell it. If it's something we can make money on, but we don't like it, or it's a piece of junk, or it's just totally freaking cheesy, there's no way in hell we're going to sell it, because I'm not trying to make a quick buck. I'm trying to, you know, again, it's all part of maintaining our customers' respect and trust and our reputation as a company, and that's worth way more to me than money, especially some short-term gain, you know? So, again, I think it's people focus on the wrong thing and then get screwed up.
Yeah, it's really crazy because, so my family has an RV dealership, and we're, like, the oldest RV dealership in Indiana, and
cool.
It's real funny how, like, I mean, even in my lifetime, how places have, like, come and gone. And there'll be, like, these new upstarts that'll come in, and they'll try to, like, you know, not like ride our coattails, but like try to like, I don't know, I guess like compare themselves to us. Like, you know, they sell it for this price, we sell this for this price, and they just want the money or whatever. And that's like, come on, dude. If we've been doing this for almost 70 years, like we're not just after people's money. Like,
yeah, man. Yeah, I totally can understand where you're coming from. You know, it's a constant cycle. It's like every couple few years there's a new batch, and then they like figure out, oh, this is a lot of hard work, and like you got to keep doing it and keep doing it. And the other thing I would say is like, man, who wants to ride someone's coattails anyway? Who wants to copy stuff? That's not the kind of person I am. I want to be creative and have fun and, you know, forge my own way. I think that let people, to some degree, let people do that kind of stuff because it's never going to get them ahead. You know, you can never get ahead of someone by copying them. I think it's, I don't know. It's just a waste of time, I suppose.
Yeah. It's really funny, just the way that, like, where, like, the whole chopper subculture is now. And, you know, I was talking to an interview guest the other week, and he said, and he made a great point, he's like, there's all this, like, stuff that's, like, it seems like it's a really big movement. And I mean, it is, really. But he's like, there's no, like, it's been around for so long now, but there's been no like big like mainstream like sellout, or there's been no like mainstream success. And like honestly, I don't know of any other subculture that's had that, where people have just kind of been able to keep it to like a, you know, like a reasonable level. But but I don't know. I think eventually. You know, especially with like Born Free and stuff, I think at some point it is going to have maybe not like a mainstream appeal. Like I don't think like you know Sean Combs is ever going to ride a chopper or anything, but I think at some point it is going to like. I think it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. I think.
You know, it's funny. I think it was in like 2010 or something. I was like, oh man, or maybe like 2012. I was like, oh man, this is peaked. Like we're on this has got to be it. And
Yep.
like I was so wrong. And just because it seemed crazy, and honestly, that was like, do you remember going to like motorcycle rides, chopper events, motorcycle shows? There was no women there.
Nope.
And I don't mean that in a like sexist or mean way, but just meaning like it was just
club.
like. It was just like a small group of like really nerdy motorcycle enthusiasts. Nerdy meaning like, you know, like, man, I'm talking about like details about linker carburetors. It's like, that's nerd stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, you could say it's cool, and it is cool, but it's also, I mean, you know, speaking Klingon is cool to certain people too, myself included. I love Star Trek, but, you know, I don't speak Klingon though. But the point being like, I don't know, things like it became more mainstream in that, like, you know, there's a lot of crossover, you know, action sports crossover. And you could say, like, using Born Free as an example, you know, obviously Vans is a sponsor, and you get, you know, assorted pro and former pro skaters there, and you get, like, you just get all these people going to it as an experience that aren't, maybe they don't even ride motorcycles, you know,
right.
Or they casually have a motorcycle, ride a motorcycle, but it's not like necessarily diehard motorcycle enthusiasts or custom bike enthusiasts, you know. And I think that's, I don't know if it'll ever get super broad. And also, I don't know, even things like larger shows have caused a little bit of I think a pushback almost, with people I know for sure. People have been around, you know, motorcycles for quite a while, have kind of myself included, have reverted back to like going camping with your friends instead of going to some giant show. Because being perfectly honest, my personal opinion, like, if I don't want to go to motorcycle shows. Like, don't get me wrong, I love motorcycles, but what I love about motorcycles isn't standing around at a show. Right. It's like riding them and breaking down and going camping and getting caught in the cold and the rain. Same. And having, you know, it's just the mix of everything you get riding. So, like, I love looking at bikes and all that stuff, but, like, man, I don't know. If I wasn't in the industry, I don't want to spend 3 days at a motorcycle show when I could spend 3 days, like, what you can do so much in 3 days on a motorcycle.
Right.
You can go ride and have such a good time that you'll remember, like, forever, you know? I've done enough motorcycle shows that, you know, many of them blend together into one long stream. I'm not complaining, but it's just like, you know, it's like, I like doing things. I like getting out there and doing stuff more than I like standing around talking about the same thing, you know? So,
yeah,
I don't know. I guess there's like that grassroots pushback, and it comes like kind of in waves, but we've done events for more than a decade, free typically, just like camp out, swap meets, rides, whatever. And they're always so much fun, and they're easy, and it's just good times, you know? And you can usually connect with quite a few people, you know, when it's not some gigantic event, you know. If you're freaking camping out, even if it's a couple hundred people, you can connect with quite a few of them when you spend a weekend together swimming and going out on little day trips and drinking beers and, you know, cooking over a campfire. And that's the kind of stuff I'd rather do than definitely rather do that than stand in a giant parking lot show or in a convention center, you know.
Yeah, man, I went to Born Free 3, and that was like the first year they had it at the Oak Canyon Ranch.
Right.
And it was really cool. It was like, up to that time was like the, you know, biggest motorcycle show I'd gone to. And it was still like manageable. And I mean, it was pretty crowded, but like I knew a lot of people there, and I could like leave my booth and like walk around and, you know, talk to people and meet new people and stuff. And it was a 1-day deal, and, you know, you could bring in a cooler full of beer, and you know, it was pretty cool. It was like totally fun. But like I went back a couple years ago, and man, it was, I mean, I can't even quantify how much bigger it was. It was like 5, 6, 10 times bigger. I mean, exponentially bigger. And it was cool. Like, I mean, it was absolutely cool, but yeah, I'm with you. It was once you like walk around and like look at the motorcycles, it's like, okay, well, am I here to look at motorcycles or am I here to socialize? And any motorcycle show of that size is going to be like that now. And you know, my favorite thing I do every year is go to like Apocalypse Run, and I love it just because it's like it's so remote, and it's it really, like, you know, it kind of weeds out you know, some people. It's, you know, dudes only. So it's like there's no like guys like riding wheelies and doing burnouts and, you know, showing off for girls.
Right.
And yeah, man, I'm right there with you. I would rather, you know, and nothing wrong with Born Free. Like, those dudes have always been cool to me, but it's like I'm back to like square one, where it's just like, yeah, I would just like to hang out with like, you know, a couple dozen dudes and like ride motorcycles and go camping and go swimming and fishing and drink beer and, you know, tell stories.
Talk shit and stuff. You know? That's what it's about. And yeah, well, you know, one thing I'd say, like, events in general, motorcycle events, you know, like, can not only maintain but build interest in motorcycling. And so, like, I think that's great. You know, you kind of need it all. There's people that love festivals and big things like that. I'm just not one of them. Like, long hair, one of my best friends, who I've known since I was 15, went to school together. He's our graphic designer here at Lowbrow. He's a metalhead. He's got long hair, and that's his nickname since I've known him. But he's super into like festivals. Like, to him, like, I've ridden through Sturgis, but not during the rally. Mm-hmm. But when I see photos of like the Sturgis rally, I'm like, oh my god, no, I don't want to go there at all.
Dude, at all. It gives me an anxiety attack. Like, I look at it
and think, no, like, I don't want to go there. And it's funny because we were looking at coverage, and I said that, and he's like, oh really? He's like, I think that looks like a blast. And it just shows it takes like, it's different strokes for different folks, you know what I mean? But I think we support so many events. Like, we sponsor freaking literally like probably 150 events a year all over the place. Wow. Basically anything motorcycle related that people hit us up, we try and support in some way. And that's because, I don't know, it gives back. It's like, it keeps people interested in bikes and seeing what other people are doing as far as customizing bikes, riding bikes, whatever. So it's good. It's like, maybe it takes some people maybe get all into big shows for a while, and then maybe that all taper off into like riding in smaller events or whatever. I guess it's just like, it's all good. It just depends. It's like, you don't have to like it all, I suppose.
Speaking of something that's kind of the opposite of going to shows, how did you get into like the land speed racing stuff?
So my interest in that got totally started by my buddy Wes White.
Right.
He runs four races cycle in Pacoima, California. Yep. And man, I met Wes actually in that trip I mentioned earlier when I flew out to like Phoenix and drove around kind of the West Coast area. I went to Biltwell, and Wes, I communicated with Wes like via email, like maybe regarding getting some parts from him or this or that. And he happened to be there. And so that's when I met Wes. And I was, was really into vintage Triumphs, and so is he. And so we hit it off, and we became friends to the point where I used to like go out to LA for like a week at a time and just sleep on his couch at his apartment, and then stay at the shop all week and just basically like learn from him. As far as mechanical stuff, working on bikes, whatever. And he at that point had already been land speed racing for maybe a few years and was super into it. And that's what got me stoked on it. There was one of these trips in particular, it was probably 2009 because I started racing in 2010, that I had been working on this pre-unit, like a 1955 pre-unit Triumph chopper in my garage at home. And at that time I had the frame, rigid frame. I had some like Acron flanged alloy wheels all laced up real nice, like I think a 21 front and 19 rear, and then I had narrowed a Wassel banana tank. And it was just like the start, and I had like tall 7/8 apes on. It was just the start of kind of like a 60 show bike. And I went home and went, man, this thing would make a good race bike chassis. And that bike became my first race bike, which is called Poison Ivy, which is here at Lowbrow now. That I raced as recently as 2 years ago, and it held a record until I broke it with another bike I built last year out at the Bonneville Soft Flats. But anyway, he got me totally into it, and it's interesting. There's like a lineage. So like I got inspired by Wes to race, inspired by his enthusiasm, and he learned a lot from now to see Mike Party, who's a well-known motorcycle guy who's did kind of a lot of work on everything. Was around forever. He actually crewed for Rolly Free in the 50s, who Rolly Free is the guy, the super famous Vincent photo with him in the bathing suit laid out flat. So when Mike was young, he crewed for Rolly Free. And so it's kind of interesting when just looking like as people inspire other people to race or get into these bikes. And it's kind of neat to almost look at this like lineage of interest. Prior to that, I never raced anything. Like I never actually like raced in any sort of event. And I obviously love it. I've been doing it most every year. There's 1 year I got married and I didn't race, and then 2 years it was rained out. But otherwise, we're out there racing land speed once or twice a year whenever we can. And it was just like it's just a hobby, but it's great because it really goes hand in hand with what we do as a company anyway. But it's like we just kind of it's like a personal focus every year. Like literally every day I'm thinking about it at a minimum, but often doing something preparing for the coming race season. So like I called the crankshaft shop earlier today because I blew a frickin' bearing out of the big end of a piston or out of a connecting rod at Bonneville last year and had to get a journal ground. And so I was calling the crankshaft shop, checking on that repair work. So I'll have that next week so I can start building the motor again. And just I'm always taking these little steps because to go faster every year, like try and keep progressing, it's kind of overwhelming if you look at it, and for me at least, in one fell swoop. So I like to if I can do like something at least every couple days, it makes that final task a lot easier. Like I'm designing now a new dual engine Triumph for 2020. I built one in 2012, actually for Born Free 4. I built a dual engine Triumph and won best competition. Went out that year, set a record. Went out the next year and set like 4 records. But I've just learned so much since I built that bike mechanically and fabrication-wise that I'm building an entire new bike for next year. And my goal is to go out there and smoke at least 4 Harley-Davidson records out of the books, which I love doing with my Triumphs. I own a bunch of Harleys I really enjoy in my Harley-Davidson motorcycles, but there's something that gives me pleasure about fucking wiping some Harley records out and Indian vintage records out of the books with my Triumphs because it irks some people. So.
Right. What's the fastest you've ever gone on a bike in speed?
My dual engine bike in 2013, I think, or maybe it was probably 2013. It was like 153,
Damn.
something like that.
Wow.
And that was on beating a record that I think was like 130. So, like, I mean, if you can beat a record by, usually it's going to be like by tenths of a mile an hour. So that was absolutely just killing it. I think that might have been a knucklehead record, a streamlined knucklehead. But yeah, that's that bike only. I never even got to its full potential. I think my hope is for next year to be in like easily. I'm hoping on like in the 160s on pump gas, and then the longer viewpoint will be going to fuel, whether it's nitrous oxide or nitrum or whatever. But basically, I just want to go as fast as I freaking can on these silly old bikes that I build in my garage.
Wow.
So I don't know, it's fun.
Do you do like any like fairings or anything, or?
I have, but I really like the simplicity and the rawness of a naked bike, because you can definitely, like, you build a good fairing and test and make it, find a good fairing design. You will go faster. But I kind of want to, like, honestly, fairings are a pain in the ass. Like, I don't know. I'm not into working with fiberglass at all. And I don't know, you have to take it on and off, and it's just annoying. So, like, I'm just going to campaign my bikes naked, meaning no fairings. And then, like, if I, like, max out, top speed, then I can go, like, okay, maybe now it's time to build a fairing for this bike or build a different bike that's got fairings that's all streamlined and put these motors in it or whatever. But I don't know, I got a lot of time. There's no rush on any of this stuff. These are already ridiculously old motorcycles. So it's like, if it's 5 years from now and I start doing that, it doesn't really matter at all,
That's incredible, man. And you, and that's just mainly at Bonneville that you've been setting the land speed records?
Yeah. I've raced, so I've gone to El Mirage to spectate one time, but because it's frickin' the exact other side of the country, it's really hard to go race for a weekend event like that, because we have to drive out, and it's like a 3-day drive each way.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to get out there at some point, but I'd really like to. I don't know. I will at some point to race. I'd really like to. There's East Coast Timing Association events, and the Bonneville stuff, Southern California Timing Association, CTA. But the ECTA, there was what was called the Ohio Mile, but that ended a couple of years ago. It was on a 1.75 mile runway. And it was what's called a standing mile. So you're at the start line, you take off, and basically it's like kind of think of it as like a freaking cop speed radar gun, get you at the 1 mile mark. It's basically from a dead stop, how fast can you cross the 1 mile marker at, and it's totally fun. I mean, it's like a great way to spend a weekend, is like, because you're tuning your bike, you're running it, testing different stuff. It's a lot of fun. 2 years ago, that runway got leased by, I think it was by Amazon, and so that was no longer available. Bastards. But now there's a new track in, I think it's Blytheville, Arkansas. We're racing. My brother and I are racing there. I forget if it's the end of April or the end of May, but there's an event coming up, and so I've got no engine together, and so I got to build this engine. So I'm calling the crankshaft shop. Build an engine and dyno, tune it, and test it, and then go down there. We'll drive down for the weekend with a few of our buddies and our dad, and race for the weekend, and basically just like test and tune for the big event, which would be Bonneville Speed Week, where it's a 3 mile course is what I'm typically running on my single engine bike. And it's absolutely like the best, one of the best weeks of the year when we're out there racing. So much fun.
Yeah, I've never been. And that's always something I've wanted to do. Just, I'm not much of a racer, but I definitely would like to go just to, mark
it's a
it off the list.
spectacle, man. It's a good time. And we always tell so many people, it's cool because like so many people pop in. It's such a grassroots event. Like you can come there, you could camp for free on it's Bureau of Land Management land, not on the salt flats, but right off the edge of the salt flats. Basically, you can go camp for free. So people tell me all the time when I run into people, motorcycle related stuff comes up. If they know I race, they ask about Bonneville or say it's on their bucket list, and it's so attainable because if you can get in a vehicle and drive yourself to the Salt Lake City area. The salt flats are like an hour and a half west of there. I mean, you can camp for free, and it's like $50 for a pass for the week or something. It's really reasonable. And then you can walk around. You can walk right up to all the fastest cars and motorcycles in the world. You can see them racing. All this is like super attainable. We have people all the time stopping by our pits who like maybe they know lowbrow, maybe they have no idea who we are, but people always just checking stuff out. And most people are very amicable. Usually we're like, pull up a chair, hang out, we'll put people to work often, like
Right.
if they want to help out, we get people helping out, whatever, even, jump in the van, go to the start line, kind of give them the full experience. It's a real attainable thing. And everyone there typically is like a total gearhead, whether it's bikes or cars or whatever. And they're usually in a really good mood because it takes a lot of organization and whatnot to be there racing. So it's like once you're there racing, unless you're totally having a bad week, like blew your motor up or whatever, and even then, but people are usually really friendly and accommodating and happy to share the experience and talk about their vehicle or whatever. I think it's a great place. And the other thing is it brings in mine and my brothers and we have a group of friends now racing. We all kind of under the lowbrow land speed racing umbrella, but and we end up having like 15 or 20 people that are like some of our best friends from all over, mostly the U.S. and Canada, but also our buddy Phil from Australia that comes out every year. And we just spend the entire week together with some of the people I like best in the world, and we're just getting up early, we're racing, you go through every possible emotion, like from near tears to jubilation to everything in between. Work real hard, don't eat that much food, hopefully go fast, have fun, maybe set some records, and then we all have dinner and freaking like parking lot beers or margaritas in the evening and get a little bit of sleep and wake up and do it over again. And it's like by the end of the week you're thrashed, but it was just such a good freaking time. So I get excited just talking about it, but it's it's just so much fun. It's just such a good time.
Yeah, like as you're describing it, it reminds me of like some of those like old like Le Mans and some of those old like Steve McQueen movies and stuff where it's just like super, just like a bunch of dudes like grassroots, like just like getting at it and like enjoying winding down after the show.
Yeah, just having good times, man. Life is short. You got to tear it up, and that's that's one of the ways I choose to tear it up. But it's I don't know. It's like I said before, you got to have hobbies, right? So it's just something that in reality doesn't matter at all as far as like setting records and that kind of stuff. But to a very select, small group of people in the world, But I don't know. I really enjoy doing it. Yeah. So that's what I've been doing.
It's here at like the Indy 500 Museum, they'll regularly have like streamliners and land speed bikes and cars and stuff, and just the technology and like the dedication to that style of racing. Because like I've always my dad and his buddies were like circle track race dudes.
Cool.
But that kind of like go as fast, wide open, balls out as you can kind of racing is super impressive to me, because like it's I don't know, it's like riding a rocket into oblivion,
Well, the thing that a lot of people don't really think of, I guess, is like, so like you can go on the highway and like you can bounce your needle off of a top speed, or like hold it there for a short while, or like whatever. But the difference is like at Bonneville, you're wringing the frickin' neck of that machine, and you're holding it there for like 3 miles. And I mean, when you're at top speed, top RPM, high gear for 3 miles straight, like, I don't know, for me at least, I'm always just listening for that sound I don't want to hear, like engine failing, and it's happened, and it's like that. Luckily I've never wrecked out there or anything, but but I mean, it's just a lot different than like, it's also a lot different than like getting on a modern, super bike, pick whichever you like, but getting on a Hayabusa and frickin' bouncing the needle off a 180 or whatever at low altitude on concrete's a lot different than like what I like about at least my bikes. Like I build them out of tubing and sheet metal in my garage using crankcases and stuff I bought for $50 at a swap meet, and then build it out of stuff in my garage, and then go make it go 150 miles an hour and ride it. I think it's like ridiculous, and I like that about it, because it's like, it's just silly to build some machine like that, and I can hold the engines in my arms, and then it'll propel me that fast. I think that's pretty cool, and it's like, I don't know, I like it because I can do it all myself, and I'm a total professional amateur. I build engines and I hold some good records and stuff, but it's I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. I'm always learning. It's like that. You learn a little bit every year, but it has more interest to me than just getting on a motorcycle that I can buy. It will go fast already. Don't get me wrong. That's a blast, I'm sure, but it doesn't. Without the hard work, I don't think the pleasure is at the same level. You know what I mean? It's like the yin and the yang. You got to really struggle and work hard, in my opinion, to really enjoy the fruits of your labors on the other end. Because if it's too easily attained, it's just I don't know. To me, at least, it's just not going to be the same. So I like the struggle.
I totally agree, and I think that's one thing that I guess separates kind of DIY, like motorcycle dudes, kind of versus the rest of the hobby, which is don't get me wrong. I mean, if I could afford or justify purchasing, a new Harley, I would, or any new bike. But to me, it's I love riding. I've been riding dirt bikes and stuff since I was a little kid, and I love that aspect of it. That that acceleration and the movement of the landscape and everything, and the feeling and the wind and the smells and everything. That part of it is totally awesome. But as far as having a bike that I built with my hands, there's just something really special about having that mastery of your machine and knowing you built it, and tending it like a garden and trying to make it go faster and doing subtle upgrades and maintaining it. That's just it's a whole different level of experience with motorcycles, I think.
For sure. I when I build a bike, and I'll know if there was a washer misplaced. You know what I mean? I know everything about about everything about that motorcycle. And racing has gotten me so in touch with tuning and learning how to tune motorcycles that it's made me, it's made my street bikes dialed in, because it's, you can have a pretty shitty running street bike that actually runs just fine for the street, but in a race application, you're going to be a dog, so when you really tune it for kind of a race application and really fine tune things, it makes it perform that much better on the street. But also I like it because, you hear a noise or something, you can figure out what it is, and if you built the bike, you're going to, likely know how to fix it, which it's that self-reliance, which is part of that DIY ethos as well. I'm definitely a firm believer in DIY, and also being self-sustaining as much as possible.
Did you so how did you go from building a Triumph from swap meet parts to how did you learn? What was your sort of I guess your progression? Did you was it people teaching you? Were you reading it out of books? Were you looking on forums?
Mostly, I still will enlist friends who are way better at something than I am to do difficult machining. Or on this race bike I built last year, I designed a bunch of the frame, and I do AutoCAD, I do SolidWorks 3D CAD work, so I do all Lowbrow's product design. So I designed a bunch of the frame and the fixtures for the frame jig, but then I enlisted Tim, who works over at the Gas Box in Cleveland,
right.
And because he basically built the frame for me in their frame jig while I assisted, but didn't really do all that much. He's a really good fabricator, and it was something I don't have a frame jig, and that was something that he has built many frames, and that's something that I was fine with enlisting him in for the kind of the main fabrication of that piece. But so in general, so what I'm getting at is when I need help, I definitely find the help I need, find the professional, someone who's more skilled than I am. But in 2009, when I started building my first race bike, I bought my first TIG welder, a demo model from Lincoln Electric, who's here in Cleveland.
Right.
And they gave me a really good deal on it, which was awesome. I still use the same welder. And I taught myself to TIG weld by basically just doing it, watching. I'm assuming I watched some YouTube videos or something, but essentially just doing it. And the way I personally operate is I don't do real well by reading a book or sitting in a class or something. I just do it. And then I screw up and I start over. I just learn by doing. So, like, the first thing I ever welded in aluminum is the oil tank on that first race bike I built. You know, so it's like, it's pretty good. But you know what? That probably took me every evening for a week to make it, where now I would do it in 2 hours. You know what I mean? So it's like a trial and error and grinding out crappy welds and trying to figure out why this was porous or whatever. But basically, just by doing it, at the same time frame, I bought a lathe, which I still use freaking every time I'm in the garage, an old 50s Atlas lathe off of Craigslist. I didn't know how to use it. I knew I probably would like to use it. And same thing, I like watched a buddy use a lathe a bit. I just started monkeying around, and I still learn new stuff all the time. I'm a hobbyist machinist, like, I would say, you know, better than agricultural quality. Like I'm pretty accurate. I can make everything I need to make to the, you know, to pretty good standards. But like, I don't do any like production work or anything. You know what I mean? I'm just messing around for my own personal motorcycles. But essentially, everything I learned fabrication wise and mechanics wise was self-taught, but also by asking a lot of questions of people who knew more than I did. But mainly trial and error. You know, is just doing it. Googling stuff or whatever, reading in forums, posting questions, that kind of stuff. And it's like when I started Lowbrow, I didn't know how to fabricate anything. I was like a bad mechanic. And I was into bikes, and I was always learning, you know what I mean? At that point, I'd already like chopped the bike and rebuilt the Triumph engine and stuff, but like the me of now would tell the me back then, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? So, again, everyone starts somewhere, but it's just with time, you know? If I had to look back, if I knew 10 or 15 years ago, like, oh man, you're going to have to learn all this stuff, I might have been like, oh, forget it. You know, like, that sounds like a lot of work. But when you add up all these little bits of knowledge and experience, you know, like an hour here, 2 hours there over all the years, it really, it just builds like anything else, you know? So my advice to most anyone is like, yeah, just frickin', you want to learn to TIG weld, fucking just do it, you know, get a TIG welder and frickin' spend time doing it, you know? Find a buddy to show you the ropes and then just sit there and run practice beads or whatever you got to do to keep yourself motivated. But, yeah, you know? Yeah.
And that's kind of it. To me, it almost like the way you're like describing that journey is pretty much kind of how you built your business too.
Yeah. Oh, like I said, that my professional amateur statement goes to everything in life because I'm a high school graduate, but aside from that, I think I had 2 weeks of community college before I decided that, you know, that was too much like high school and it was not for me. I just wanted to work, you know, make money and, you know, do my thing. But, yeah, I mean, everything we do is here at like Lowbrow. And so, I mean, it's just all same thing as what I described for the fabrication thing. So like, I try and have good professionals, right? So it's like, I've got a good accountant. I've got a good bookkeeper because they know that stuff. I don't even want to know that stuff. You know what I mean? It's not what I'm into. You know, whatever, just finding the right professionals to kind of surround yourself with for those tasks, you know? Like my accountant is the same thing as Eric, my badass machinist friend. You know what I mean? They just do different tasks. And I don't know. When it comes to business, I really enjoy business. Like I thoroughly enjoy not just motorcycle business. I just like business in general. I find it interesting, and I'm always interested to hear how other businesses operate, and just kind of anything to do with it. I don't know. I find it interesting, so that definitely helps. That like one of my hobbies is being interested in business in general. You know. Yeah, you're killing it, dude. Yeah, we're trying.
Yeah. What do you, so you got you're doing are you doing something in Arkansas, the lane speed racing?
Yeah. So that's, I feel silly not even knowing exactly when it is. I'm not the most schedule-oriented person. I think it's end of May. I hope it's the end of May because if it's end of April, that gives me a month less time to prepare. But, yeah, we'll be racing and we'll be like throwing stuff up on Lowbrow's, Instagram and Facebook and all that and like, you know, live stuff, which would be kind of fun about the racing, what we're doing, what other vehicles or what other motorcycles and stuff are doing there. It'll be pretty cool. Other stuff we got going on, we put on a show, Fuel Cleveland, which is, I think it's July 28th. It's this last Saturday in July. It's the fifth year, and every year it's like getting better and better, and I'm actually super proud of the work that myself and Mikey Arnold here at Lowbrow, who we started the show together, and Jesse Bassett from the Gas Box. The three of us started that 5 years ago, and it's a ton of work, but man, I love being there and seeing how much people enjoy it, and I'm always humbled by how far people come from out of town to display a bike, to just ride a bike out, to be part of the show, to attend the show. It makes me feel really good, and I'm also proud that it's continues to be, and it will always be, free to the public, family friendly. It's just all about motorcycles and having a good time. It's not about making money. It's just about freaking loving motorcycles. And so I think that's why it's like doubling in size every year, and it's just getting better and better because that comes across kind of like the same way like I was talking about how we do business or how I do live my life. It's like that authenticity comes through and people just get it. Like, even if it's not a conscious thing, right. I think it just comes through naturally. You know what I mean? It gives you that vibe. And that's a show. I'm really proud of it. And the whole weekend's full of, and even before the weekend, of like pre-parties and after-parties and events and just different stuff. So people coming in from out of town. We've had many people say, I've never been to Cleveland. I never thought I'd want to go to Cleveland.
I love Cleveland.
I did, and I had a great time and blah, blah, blah. And also being born and raised in Cleveland, I'm happy to hear that. So we got that going on. In mid-July, we got our lowbrow get-down camp out. This is the 10th year. That's another event. It's like you pay the campground for camping. Otherwise, it's a free event. And it's just a party. There's nothing commercial about it. There's no vendor booths or anything. It's like... Right. We have 500 to 1,000 people every year. I mean, it's pretty big, and it gets super wild, and it's like hippie-run campground. It's swimming in this giant, beautiful quarry, spring-fed quarry. It's riding motorcycles. It's drinking. It's just basically having a crazy 3-day weekend, and I don't know. That's a good one that we've been doing for a long time.
Yeah. Looks fun, man. Looks like a good time. All right. Anything else we left out?
I don't know, man. We covered quite a bit. I hope I didn't talk at you too much,
No, dude.
But I enjoyed the conversation.
It was perfect. Cool. Absolutely. Well, hey, man, thanks a lot for talking to me. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. Anytime. And, thanks for having me again. Hopefully people enjoy the conversation. And we'll be sure to help spread the word as well. And, get some more ears listening.
Awesome.
And that was my talk with Tyler Malinky of Lowbrow Customs. You can keep up with Tyler, Mikey, and the whole Lowbrow crew by following them on Instagram at Lowbrow Customs, all one word. Be sure to stop by their website to purchase parts, accessories, and apparel. Also, don't forget Fuel Cleveland coming up July 27th, 2019. If you enjoy what you hear, please take a second to subscribe to the podcast and share it on social media. Word of mouth is the best way to help us out. Sending a podcast link to a friend or posting on Instagram or Facebook assists us in the organic growth we are looking for. Another way to help is by leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. That helps us become more visible and move up in the podcast rankings. Lastly, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram, and that's at rulers_and_riders. That will about do it for this episode of Rulers and Riders. Be sure to tune in next week for Country Nuggets Volume 4. As always, thanks for listening, and until next time, we'll see you down the road.